Welcome to the Kitchen Table Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Wolf. My wife and I run a life and health insurance brokerage firm where our main mission is to help people with those needs. But we wanted to document our journey along the way, and that's what this podcast is for. This is the Kitchen Table Podcast, where real conversations happen. And today, I am super excited to have my good friend, Glenn Walton, on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Glenn.
Thank you, Greg. A long time coming.
Yeah, dude. We've tried to schedule this podcast for a while now.
Yeah, that's true.
Glad we're finally doing it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. Seriously.
How many podcasts have you been on before?
Podcasts?
Yeah. Been on a few.
Yeah, 2, maybe.
Nice.
I've done some trainings.
Yeah.
Some recordings for that, but no, this one's better because we started together.
I love it.
And so this is, I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
I know you have. And I've been excited to dive right in. I'm going to, basically how I want to talk through today is a little bit of your journey in your professional life, how that's led you to where you're at today. I want to start there. So let's just talk a little bit about where did you start your professional career at? From the beginning.
From the beginning?
Yeah.
Wow. My first, let's say career. So my first job was 15. I flipped burgers at McDonald's.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell my age, but this is when minimum wage was like $5.85, $6 an hour. And so I did that for a year while I was in high school. I was a junior in high school. And I worked at McDonald's, and I saved a lot of money to buy my first car. Remember it like it was yesterday.
$5, and you were able to save.
It took me a long time.
Yeah, a year.
And I worked a lot, but I worked a year, and I saved up. It was a 1986 Ford Escort hatchback, baby blue exterior with baby blue interior.
Okay.
No radio. So I had to jimmy rig it, and it would slide everywhere. And I changed the fuel pump a couple times. So first date with my girlfriend, and we had to stop light, and it stopped on me, so I had to, pump the
it's gonna be fine.
No big deal. But I did that for very long. I did that for a year, and then I switched to Ponderosa my senior year. I was a dishwasher.
Okay. Food service. I didn't know you did the food service job.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did. My mother she's a hustler. She was a social worker. She also worked at my high school as a librarian. And then on weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, we would go to Chinatown in Chicago, and she would go to Chinatown and buy in bulks of scarves and things like that she can go door to door to sell.
Wow.
So from a young age, So from a young age, I've never told this story ever. I don't even know if my wife knows. Oh man,
she's gonna know now.
But yeah, she's definitely gonna know. So my mother went door to door, and I would go with her, and I would sit in the car, or I would go up to it with them, and we would present scarves and whatever we can get our hands on to see if we can make things work.
I love it.
So I grew up in Gary, Indiana, and my father was absent in my life, and my mother had to figure out how to support 5 children. So, hustling has always been in my genes, of course. Fast forward, when I got into the factory life.
So from Ponderosa to a factory?
No, actually, from Ponderosa, I went to the shoe game. This is why I love shoes so much.
Like Finish Line?
Yeah. I started at Foot Locker.
A Foot Locker. Got it.
Foot Locker.
Okay.
And
hustling shoes.
I did. Yeah, I had 3 in college. While I was at college at University of Southern Indiana in Evansville.
Okay.
I worked at Foot Locker, Foot Action, and I worked at Kids Foot Locker simultaneously because they were all joined together.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's why I fell in love with shoes more. My mama couldn't afford to purchase those things, so I was like, perfect. This is the perfect opportunity. And back then, you can get discounts on Jordans. You can't do that now.
No.
I've tried. So we did that, and I did that through college, and I fast forward and I went it. So let's just move a little bit forward. I'm now 21, 22. And I transferred to another school, but it just wasn't clicking for me. I went to school because my mother always told me to go to school and get a good education. And what I saw in movies and things was like, okay, get a college degree and you can work a 9 to 5 and you can work this way up through the corporate ladder. And I just didn't like school. It wasn't interesting to me. So I just played basketball a lot because I really wanted to play basketball. I was really good at it. And I loved actually working at the Foot Locker, just helping kids that I didn't necessarily have the chance when I was a kid to be able to pick some shoes. Yeah. Just kind of help them go through the motions, and it was pretty cool. And I got tired of the retail life, and then I had a proposition when I stayed in retail till I was 26.
Oh wow,
27.
You spent some time there.
Yeah, assistant manager, about to trying to become a store manager.
Okay.
And then a friend of ours told me, he said, hey, why don't you just go to the factory? I was like, what? No way. So I went to Lippert Components for about 2 years.
Okay.
3 years.
Is that like 4 a.m. starts building RVs?
Yeah, it was 5:30 to whenever you were done. But I was really fast and I wanted to play basketball. So I would come in at 5, pack up a whole bunch of doors because I was doing entry doors. Okay. And so when you open up an RV door, those are the doors that I assemble. And I started from the frame and everything like that. And then from there, I got really good at it, and I just wanted to be a group leader. And they were cutting our hours, and we was working too hard. And so I saw an ad. My auntie-in-law at the time, or I should say my girlfriend's auntie, was like, hey, I think you'd be good back in sales. And I was like, I did that already. She says, no, I think you should be good at selling cars. And I was like, oh, that's a different ball game. That's thousands of dollars that I'm trying to help. And I said, no, I can't do that. And she said, I think you can, and you should. And I was like, okay. So I read the ad, and it said you can start out making like 50 to 60. I was only making 32 at the time. Okay. I had a 1-year-old son. So I was like, let's try it. Let's go. And so I left, and I called off sick for a week because at that time at Gates, where we were from, you had to do an interview process. Okay. And the interview process is they would hire outside sales. I think his name is Sean. And he would just interview you, see how he think you would fit good in it. Kind of prep you too a little bit. And so I was kind of rugged or whatnot. But, he saw I had some grit and some salesmanship. And he says, hey, if you want to make a real impact in this, because they have a no beard policy, shave off your beard. And I was like, oh, no. And he was like, yeah, for real. Like, shave off your beard and come in here and just come with like confidence. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So I shaved it off before I got the job. Okay. Because they had just, put that in. It was in July too.
No facial hair.
No facial hair. So that's a nasty sight. Yeah. So I went into there, and then I just basically sold myself, and I talked to Clint. I wanted to be at the Toyota store because I was like, oh, this looks like the Taj Mahal. This is perfect for me.
Talk to me about timeline. I want to make sure we're following and we're tracking around the same time. So what year is this now?
So
or how old are you?
Yeah,
you
let's
do
go
either
back.
way.
So
you're going to show your age during this podcast, so be prepared.
So, okay, so you want to know more, so let me revert back one more time. Before I came up to Mishawaka, I was at college at PNC playing basketball. This was 2005, 2006. 2007. And I got into some trouble. A lot of people don't know, but I was wrongly convicted of a Class B felony for theft and burglary.
Okay.
And so...
You want to dive into that, or you want to leave it alone? We don't have to.
We can dive in it. So I had a roommate that I was living with, and then I had a friend that now, mind you, I worked in retail my whole life. So as I'm going to college, my mom couldn't afford to help me with anything. My sisters was worried about their kids. So I went to college. I had basketball practice at 5 o'clock to about 8 o'clock. I went to class from 8 to 5. And then from 5 to midnight, I worked at the Michigan City outlet where I met a friend of ours, a friend who was from the same area. So we connected. He cut my hair. Long story short, I was going to Atlanta to see my family, to travel out there because I was getting the plane ticket to go. And I let him borrow my car. Well, my car had my house keys on it too. And so December 24th of 2007, the same friend, he robbed my house. And so I was nowhere to be there. And so my roommate called me and said, hey.
That's some friend that would rob your house.
I know, right? So my roommate said, hey, we got robbed. And I said, well, what did they take? Like, what happened? He said, well, I feel like they came through the window And they didn't really take much. They took your PS2 without the cords and your controllers, and they took my PS3 and they took like some shoes. And I was
like, it didn't take much.
Yeah, not really.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. So I called my friend instantly. I don't know why, but I called my friend and said, hey, do you know about our place getting robbed? And we talked for 30 minutes, and he was like, no. I was like, no, I'm serious. Is anything, like, do you know any suspicion, anything like that? Because you have my car and you have my keys. Are you around or affiliated with that? And he told me up and down, no, nothing happened. I came back, and this was after Christmas. I ended up coming back probably about the 27th, 28th. Came back. We're still on Christmas break. I'm laying down in my bedroom sleeping, and then I get a knock on the door, and it's two detectives that want to come. I said, okay. And so they took me to the Michigan City jail. Well, interrogation. I don't know anything. I've never been in trouble. So they're asking me questions about, as far as like, hey, did you know about this? We have word that your friend, who we caught, stole it and said it was your idea. And I was like, no, that isn't the case. I did know from like the cop shows and stuff like that, like interrogations, I knew that they would try to twist words around and whatnot, sure. Of course. And so they got me rattled, and I was like, no, I've never done that. I said, you can check my phone records, you can call my auntie. I was with my mother, my sisters and family in Atlanta. Yeah. And I said, I never did any of this. Well, why would he have the keys to your car? And I said, well, because his car went out, and he has a wife and two kids in a one-bedroom apartment. I'm trying to help him out. And so they asked me, have you given it any thought of robbing him? And I said, no, why would I give that any thought? Like, that makes no sense. You're not making any sense. And then he said, well, we have a written testimony or statement from the guy who robbed him, and I will keep his name nameless. But he said, we have a written testimony, so, you have the right to remain silent. So he came, yeah. And I didn't know no better, so I'm screaming, and I'm like, man, this is chaotic. Call my auntie, call my family, check my records. You can get access to my Sprint records and see that where I was at the timeline.
It just sounds like a very much of a profiling type of case.
It definitely was. I definitely was. I hate to say it like that, but it was. And so they hit me with they didn't tell me what they hit me with. They just put me in jail. So I had some friends that I was talking to, and I had to get a phone call. So they let me make a phone call. So I called and I said, hey, I need you to call this person, this person, this person, see if they can help. My mom, my sisters, they didn't have any money to help me out. So I stayed. They transferred me to LaPorte County Jail. Yeah. And then they asked me, I hope no one ever has to go to jail, because it's depriving, and like all your pride they treat you like crap. Yeah. So obviously I'm walking out. I went into the tank, the holding cell, sat there for almost a day. They got us out. They said, they wash you, they spray you down and everything like that, and give me my orange jumpsuit, whatnot. And they say, is there anybody that you're in threatening of your life? And I said, no, but if I see the person who did it, I'm gonna mess them up. Yeah. And so they put me at the lowest level, which is like the first level, where people are trying to get out and do well, or people fear for their lives. So they put me in the first section, because you have a whole bunch of sections in the jail. Yeah. And I stayed there for 3.5, 4 months.
3.5, 4 months?
Yeah. Before I had any money to give, because my bond was $25,000 or 10% of that.
That's so unbelievably crazy that in America that's just a thing.
Yeah.
Off of zero evidence, and then somebody said something. So hey, we're just gonna interject in your life for the next 3 or 4 months. So what happened? So 3 or 4 months, you get out?
Yeah, I end up. It's funny. It's not funny, but I think at that time God was trying to give me signs at a younger age, and I just ignored the signs.
Had you had a relationship with God prior to this?
Yeah. My family
grew up in church.
My mother was actively in there, and to this day, we went to church on Saturdays. Okay. So when I first grew up, we went to church on Saturdays. So I was like, so we're Seventh-day Adventists? And she was like, no. And I was like, well. So from as long as I can remember till I was probably about middle school. We went to that church, and that's where she met my dad, apparently. But I always knew Christ. I knew of Christ, but I didn't have a personal relationship with him because I just did what my mom said. If I didn't do it, she's taking off the shoe and she's spanking my butt, or I'm getting in punishment or grounded. So I just went because that's what you do. You do every Sunday. I just was going to check off a box, I guess, now that I look back at it. But I always knew God was always close with me because I would hear him, or I would have thoughts and impressions in my heart or in my mind that I knew that wouldn't come from me. Yeah. And so I deliberately disobeyed them. Henceforth, that's why I was locked up, I guess. Or the fact that I had to go through all these turmoils and trials.
Yeah, he used a bad situation, and that's what the Bible says. Man made it for evil, and God made it for good.
Yeah, 100%. And so I went there, and I stayed in there. So they woke me up. It's really cold. I'm on a bunk bed. I got 6 people in the room. I barely got a bunk. So I got the top bunk. We got 3 other people in their bunks, and then you got 2 people. Yeah.
So you get out. What happens then?
So I get out, and my girlfriend at the time, she's the reason why I'm out.
Are they telling you anything? Are they going to drop this thing?
So it was a B felony. They said, well, we have reason. So now we're going to drop it down to a D felony. So technically my bond at the time for a B felony was probably like 10 grand. And then they 100,000 or 10 grand, 10% of that. And so then they dropped it down to a D felony, and they just did only theft. And I was like, I didn't want to sign it, but I had no choice, right? They switch and bait you or whatnot, or make you feel like that's your only decision. Yeah. And so I signed it, and then I just sat there, and I called, and I read my Bible a lot. I worked out, and I read my Bible, and I talked to other people in there. And when I got out, my girlfriend at the time and my sister took her tax money. So this was probably close to March or April when I finally got out. Yeah. And so we came up to Mishawaka. She's from Mishawaka. I knew nothing about Mishawaka, but I didn't have a place to stay. Yeah. And so it's funny, I play basketball around the city, so a lot of people knew me. And so I was at Little Caesars getting some pizza, and I saw one of the friends I played basketball with. I didn't have a real relationship with him, but I knew him from sports. And when you play basketball or you interact, people know you from that. Yeah. And so he was like, what are you doing up here? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just out here visiting, don't have a place to stay right now, just trying to figure it out. And he was like, he was going to Bethel College at the time. Okay. So he was like, hey, you can come stay with me. My roommate left. Dang. I was like, what? He was like, yeah. So my girlfriend's parents didn't want me to, obviously, didn't want to be with a knucklehead at the time or nothing. And so I had no choice. So I went to Bethel, meeting them, and I stayed there for about a year and a half on campus. I slept and ate and went to chapel like I was a student, but I was not a student at all. Not a student at all, bro. I worked at Finish Line. That's where the Finish Line came in. I worked at Finish Line, and I worked at Chipotle. So I had 2 jobs, and I hooped, played basketball, and that's what I did. And I hung out with the college people. And so slowly but surely, because I didn't have to go to chapel. And if anybody went to Bethel, you have chapel. It was basically praise and worship in the morning. Mm-hmm. Getting your mind right. And that was every day at 7:30, 8 o'clock. Got it. And I would go. Even though I would fall asleep, I would still go. And eventually, me and my girlfriend at that time, we had got serious. And we said, you know what? Let's get our own place. And so we got our own place. And then, that's where we're getting caught up now, to where I was at Finish Line working there. And then I got the proposition to
go into the car business.
Exactly.
Before we get into the car business, because there's a lot to unpack there, I think it's amazing that, you're looking back now, right? Mm-hmm. Perspective, and they always say hindsight is 20/20, right? Mm-hmm. You can look at things now differently than when you're in the moment. Yeah. And I think that for you to even recognize today that what you went through made you and developed you into who you are, I think that's something that, a lot of times we don't like going through hard stuff. Right. And we avoid the hard stuff. But guess what? That's part of our chapter. It's part of our story. Yeah. And develops us into who we are. Yeah. So I think it's important not to run from that, but to embrace it. And so I think you did that. I think, I'm sure that there was probably a lot of, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but probably some confusion around what in the world? Why am I being? Why is this even happening to me? Yeah, there's a lot to.
Dude, it was crazy.
Dive in with that.
When I look back now, like so for me, I didn't do well with emotions.
Okay.
Like
I just kept it in.
I didn't have a dad in my life, and my mother was too busy trying to survive. I didn't have an outlet or a positive role model at that particular time that I can just vent and talk to. So I just put it to where, okay, I deal with it, and then I sweep it underneath the rug because I don't want and I don't know how to deal with my emotions.
Talk about sweeping it under the rug. What did that do for you? How'd that, does it come back up when you handle things that way?
Yeah, 100% down the road. So for me, I would sweep anytime I had anything bad happen to my life or anything I felt was unjust or I went through hardship or anything like that, I would sweep it underneath the rug. I would fester just a little bit, and then I would move it on the rug because I didn't like the feeling of always being negative. Like, I'm genuinely a happy person. Yeah. I mean, people around me, he's always happy, he's always smiling. I do have my moments, but I didn't want to feel that way because I didn't know how to deal with it, and I didn't want to look in the mirror and was like, okay, I need help, or hey, we really need to sit down and fester. I didn't know who to go to because I didn't have nobody that I thought I could go to.
Sure.
So and it just, the more I kept swelling, sweeping it underneath the rug, the more it just kept getting higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
And so next thing you know, it's just blown out in different variants of my life, whether it was with my significant other or maybe sometimes even on my kids as I got older, or I'm triggered by something that I don't know why I'm triggered, but it triggered me in a sense. And so, if you don't deal with that and take the time to really unpack why you're feeling the way you're feeling, it's going to come out eventually.
Dude, I think people sleep on that way too much, and they think that, just avoiding it and not having the conversation or not dealing with what's happening is the way to handle it. I know in my own life I've had to do that as well, and have realized that's not the way. And the more that you can get out in front and have a conversation and deal with what is happening head on, the better you're going to be long term.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and move into the car space because that's where we met.
Yeah. He did not like me, by the way.
What do you mean? You didn't like me?
I didn't like anybody.
We were healthy competition.
We were.
I didn't aggressive.
I was like, you're after me.
It was a different time, a different culture, a different environment.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that
definitely toxic.
Yeah, we were able to have healthy competition, but also it wasn't the right type of competition.
No, definitely
we'll get into that too. But so you start the car business, you go through the interview process, they give you the gig, you're fresh in, never sold anything besides obviously in the mall and the retail, like the different type of sales. Right. So you're in the car business. What year are we in now?
We are in July of 2013.
July of 2013, we're in the car business.
Yes.
You came in and immediately crushed it, right?
No.
Okay.
No,
definitely didn't.
Exactly how it went. It was crazy. So at that time when I finally get in, I think I probably got hired like July 12th or 13th. But they made me sit and do all my new car training. They made me shadow different people. We had like a veteran, Jimmy.
Yeah,
Jim Pagodas, So they had me shadow him and other people there.
Before you were even able to sell a car?
Yeah, I couldn't sell anything. I had to sit in the back where the manager's desk was in the middle. I would sit back there with computers, and I would do all my training and testing there.
Okay.
Maybe come back to get a break or something. I didn't know what to expect, but I was just like, I got to make this work.
Yeah.
Backpedal, I almost didn't get in because at that particular time, the general manager wanted to see how loyal or how much you really wanted to commit to the car business. So they asked for a $500 refundable check. Yeah.
You had to pay them?
Yeah.
$500 to get in?
Yeah. So like in the training, I know that's crazy. I know, right? So he wanted to see who really wanted this job and who didn't want the job.
So you pay in $500?
I paid in $500, and he said once you pass your training stage,
what if you didn't pass that?
Oh, they keep it. Yeah, I've had some people who did not keep their money, and I was like, I'm keeping my.
Dude, I am blown away right now.
Yeah.
That's a real thing?
That was a real thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So you pay this money to join this car business where you're a commission salesman.
Absolutely. And when you say it like that, it's like, oh man, I was stupid. But I was broke. I had a 1-year-old.
So you were all in.
Yeah, I had to be all in. I've always had to. I had responsibility, and I knew from past experience of not me having any male role models in my life.
You weren't going to do that to your kids?
I wasn't going to do that to my son. I was never going to do that to him. As long as I live, and even to this day, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they have a better life than I do.
Man, that's it. That's what it's all about.
And that was my goal. That was my drive. That's been my drive since I had a kid.
Yeah.
My whole mind shifted in perspective of making sure it's not about me as much, even though I wanted it to be. It's about this child who didn't ask to be here, and to make sure he has the best, they have the best, that we can offer.
No doubt.
And so that $500, I had to borrow it from my girlfriend's granny, with the promise of paying it back. I was broke.
This is crazy.
I've never told this story. Nobody knows about this.
This is wild. So you're in the car business. You are now starting to figure out a little bit.
Starting to make
some sales.
Month 1. Yes, month 1. I was told, they didn't give me a lot of training. They were just like, hey, shadow, see what it is. Be aggressive on a lot. And first one, get the up. And if you need help, come get us.
Okay.
So that's really all I did. In my first full month in the business, I
just kept getting people.
I tripped into 20 car sales.
Yeah, that's pretty unheard of.
Yeah.
In your first year or
first
month.
full month in the business, I tripped into 20 car sales.
But it's just because you're aggressive.
Yeah.
Love it. Didn't know what you're doing. Didn't know what the product was. Hey, I got a customer. What do we do with them?
And I'm not letting them go until they say yes or they tell me something else.
I love it. So your first year, because we got some years to go through, and so we don't want this to be 14 hours long. Right. We got first year. What did you end up doing that first year in business? Do you remember what your volume of cars was, roughly? Doesn't have to be the exact number.
I know it was unexpected because we had it at Knollwood Country Club. He had a Christmas party. This was 2014, end of 2014, going into 2015. Yeah, 2014, we had it. And we were at Knollwood. We had service in them, and they put up numbers. And I didn't really know, but I knew I was close to number 1. And I think I might have squeezed by Mike, what's his name? Man, I'm trying to think of his name, but he was the GOAT for Toyota.
Okay.
Fahey. Yeah, Mike Fahey. Yeah. I beat him my first year by like 1 car.
No way.
Yeah. And so by this time, he was part-time anyway, but still.
Came in year 1, top guy at the car dealership, was crushing it.
Yeah, 100%.
After that, you really didn't look back.
No. It was addicting.
You figured out ways to do the car business your way. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about, and so people understand, what did that look like on a day-to-day basis, but also like what was that time commitment look for you?
And it was long hours. Day to day, it was, we started at 9. I was getting there like 8:30, 8:45, just a little bit early. And I would have walked a lot. They trained me when I first started to just know your inventory, right? You got to know your inventory, because if a client asks for a specific car or asks for a car that's close to it, maybe you can kind of help steer them or show them something that's similar to it. It may not be the exact, but it's awfully close. So I would take the next 15, 20 minutes to get a cup of coffee, and I would go through service, say hey to people in service, and then I would walk to see what trades we got in. And then on my way back from trades, then I will walk the used car lot to see if there was anything unique or something that caught my eye. And so I will walk around and just get ready until 9 o'clock. And then by 8:59, about 8:50, 8:59, I would just sit on a lot and just patiently wait for a client. And that was it. And I did that from 9 a.m. till sometimes 8 p.m., 9 p.m., depending on, the people, the clients that we had.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go all day, not seeing anybody. And then when you're ready to get off of work, you see somebody like, dang it.
I haven't sold a car all day.
Yeah, I ain't made no money all day. I gotta go.
Yeah, tack.
So, 100%.
So I know a little bit of your journey. So you had massive success selling vehicles, selling cars, top guy, year over year. And then you decide, hey, I'm going to maybe try this management thing. I'm going to get into management. I want to see what it's about. Get into the finance world. So you did that. Briefly talk to me about a little bit about why your decision was to jump into the management side, and then why you decided ultimately to come back into the sales side.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm going to be all the way transparent on this.
I hope you are. That means you.
I was in it for the wrong reasons. I was chasing titles instead of just trying to help people. So I became number one. My head got big for winning these accolades, as far as like maybe being on the billboard for a post, or, you know, getting a little recognition at the end of the year or whatnot. And I was pretty bored with selling cars, because at this point what I thought in my mind is like, I got this figured out. This is easy for me. Yeah. And at that time, I was only averaging like 22 cars a month.
Okay. Still running everything.
Yeah. Still doing really well. And we had a really tough lineup too. And so I talked to the general manager at the time, and I said, hey, I think I want to try this finance out. And he was like, why? And I was like, and I just kind of gave him a story of me wanting to better myself, move up in the chain, be a company man, things like that, which were fairly true, but it was basically that plaque or that title that you get for being a manager and feeling like, you know, you have all the respect of your peers, you know, per se.
Chasing the title.
Exactly, 100%. And so I went into finance. He said, you're going to have a pay cut. And I said, well, what are we talking about? Because at that time, this is like 2017, I was making $140,000 selling cars, which at that time was really great. Yeah. You know, and I wasn't really stressing about it. And he was like, you're going to take a pay cut. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, you get a pay cut?
So more responsibility.
Yeah.
A manager title.
Right.
In charge of a lot of fiduciary responsibilities and a lot of other things that come with being a finance manager. And you're going to take a pay cut?
I'm taking a pay cut to start out in finance.
That seems a little strange.
It did. But I was, in my mind, I'm like, this is the way. If I have to take a minor setback to get a major come up, that's what it's all about. Is what I was thinking.
And don't get me wrong, I say that a little bit sarcastically, just because I experienced the same exact thing.
I know.
got sold the dream. So
you can do this. We go.
Yeah, all of
by
it.
your time in, 5-10 years go by, and you still ain't getting nowhere. So
no doubt.
But anyway, so I did it, and I did finance. Finance was fairly easy. I mean, I'm a relationable guy, so I can really, relate to people.
Connect with people
really quick, really well, find common denominator, and just ask questions and talk, We learned that in the car business, you have, 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth, look, listen, and hear what the client is saying before you speak. No doubt. And so I kind of mastered that to a degree of like, okay, this is what I need. I need to be able to listen to them. Yeah. And so I did fairly well with that. I mean, I was running really good numbers. At that time, I think I was running like $1,700 a copy, which is actually no joke for a rookie at the time.
Yeah, no doubt. I know those numbers. Those are solid numbers.
Yeah, so we did that, and I was working hard, and
but not getting paid nearly.
Not getting paid, struggling, like literally struggling.
Yeah, go from that lifestyle to almost definitely backwards.
Right, but I looked the part though. I had a nice suit, whatever that I got from Men's Warehouse at the time. I had to wear the Melton Johnson and Murphy shoes.
Oh, I know all about the Meltons.
Got the double Windsor tie and everything, and so I looked the part, but inside I was really broken, and I was upset and frustrated. And I've had conversations with, at that time, the general manager and our director at the time, and asking, showing my worth, thinking that my worth would help accumulate and get me a pay increase, and it wasn't going that way. And so here again, me being a follower instead of being a leader, we got enticed with a proposition at Gurley Leap, a couple of us, and they were the top guys in the company. I was writing numbers. And so, one person jumped. I was talking with him. I was very frustrated about the situation, not happy with it. And then I had a meeting with the platform manager at Gurley Leap at the time, and he's like, I think you'll do well at the Hyundai Super. And I was like, I don't know anything about that. Put me with the GMCs. I know Chevys. Right. I know GM. He said, no, I think you do well with that. And I was like, okay. And so, again, I got sold another dream, per se. I'm not going to say it was bad, because it wasn't. It was just button heads of management styles. I'm from from this type of management style to where we do everything we can to help the client, and then when I move over, they're just like lackadaisical, not really trying to think outside the box of their norm and stretch themselves to help create a deal for the client. Yeah. And so we butted heads for a lot there. And I stayed there for about a year and a half, and I was one of the top producers there too. And then my old manager got let go in finance, and I was just thinking like, okay, well, I have more experience now. So I called them, have a conversation with him, and he's like, I've had people who, and I quote, I've had people who stayed loyal to the business, so I don't know if it would be fair to put you back in finance. And I said, huh. And then I had another guy who I didn't really know, but he came from the Granger store. It was like, hey, I'm glad to have you back. It's an honor. I know you was kicking our butt all the time, but I think you're crushing on the sales floor. And I was like, dude, I'm past that. Yeah. Like, at this point, I'm in my 30s. I'm like, this is pointless. I'm not trying to go backwards. And he said something to me that really triggered with me at the time, because I was chasing money. He said, when has it not been about the money? And I said, what do you mean by that? And so we went over comp plans and structures, and he kind of told me, hey, this is what we can do for you. And I said, all right, with the intent of getting back into management. Yeah. Got it. Obviously, guys, you see me today, that never happened. So they raised me up to more than average. Okay. They put me up like 10% over what the average person was doing, which is fine. I definitely raised the rate because at that time I was way more experienced. Yeah. Because I knew how to
knew more psychology.
Exactly. I emotionally knew how to close a client. Yeah. But now analytically and logically dealing with Subaru and Hyundai people, I felt like I had everything to the recipe. So it just came so naturally.
Yeah, you leveled up for sure.
Yes, 100%.
You come back around April time that year, 2018. Yeah. And for like 6 months, just run the table.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody beat me for 6 months, the last 6 months, yeah.
And then Greg Wolf shows up. We met October of that year. Mm-hmm. I look up on the board. At that time, there was a plaque, and it had just Glenn Walton. I'm like, who in the world is this Glenn Walton dude? And you would literally give me no time of day. And I remember my first month. I did not beat you my first month. Mm-hmm. But my first month, I got on trying. Mm-hmm. I said that definitely wrong. But I was it was like 20 plus cars coming in. Yeah. And you had to like figure like they're trying to set me up and give you all the deals. I was like, no. But no, so we went back and forth that next year, back and forth on sales. Mm-hmm. But I think I want to highlight a couple things. Number one, you've always been committed to whatever you're doing.
That is true.
Right? You've been bought in on like, hey, if I'm going to do something, the Bible says whatever we do with our full heart, right? Do with everything that you have. Yes. And so you were always like full in. Yeah. So I think I definitely respect that and noticed that right away about you. But something that I also know that what the environment that you're around, the people that you surround yourself matters.
100%.
Let's talk about that just a little bit about,
it can make or break you. It could definitely change your perception if you are, first of all, not aware of it, right? And I wasn't aware. I'm still not going to church, by the way. Yeah. And we'll talk about it another time, later. But I still wasn't going to church. And I have always felt like I was like completely different. Like the people I thought I would resonate with, I didn't really gel with them on that type of level. Like it had to be forced. And a friendship and a brotherhood should never be forced. Agreed. It should be like a casual thing that just organically happens, right? And so in my mind, I'm proving to them like I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Maybe they'll help set me up and I'll be, welcome in their fraternity. That's what I looked at it as the management team. And, but it skewed my mind. And it made me very arrogant and prideful, and it made me no compassion whatsoever. Yeah. No F's given whatsoever. Yeah. About anybody who was in my way, and if I felt you was a threat, I would make it my mission to beat you badly to multiple times, so that way you don't even think you have a chance.
Yeah.
Without even trying to get to know nobody. So I was always isolated to myself because I was just arrogant.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had to be that in that environment because
it's a dog eat world.
Yeah.
And remember they pinned us against each other, like that we needed to like hate each other.
Yeah. 100%.
And it wasn't really, if we're being all the way honest, it wasn't until our wives
Shout out to Chelsea and Jessica.
Yeah.
My wives.
Was it like a Christmas party or something that they first like?
Yeah.
Just start talking?
Because what's funny is, fast forward, right? 2018. I think you met Chelsea in 2018.
2019. The beginning. It was like February.
Yeah. You met Chelsea in 2019. I have met Jessica. I had got, with my ex at the time, I was trying to figure everything out and whatnot, and I'm a wreck. But I met my now wife, Jessica, in December 31st of 2018, and wasn't ready. She definitely was way more than I can ever imagine at the time.
Did we both outkicked our coverage? So we'll be the first to admit that.
Yeah, 100%. And so I remember Bill would gradually pull us together. We have discussions and stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay, he's not that bad, whatnot, but whatever. He's still in my competition, so I can't really show like
can't be cool friends with him.
Yeah, that's really cool. That really was it. And so I was like, all right. So then, as you were talking about your dating life with Chelsea at the time and traveling back and forth, and I would mention some things about Jessica at the time. She was living in Denver, so I would fly every couple months. Well, actually, I flew in February of 2019 around my birthday. I begged her.
I remember this.
I didn't give up. And my wife would tell you, she was like, no, he didn't. He just told me he was coming. I was like, yeah.
Closer.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and the rest is history. No, I'm just kidding. and then we got together in May, but she still lived in Denver, so we had a long distance relationship, and you had a long distance relationship, and so we just kind of slowly but surely started putting things together. And I remember I didn't look at you as much as like an enemy, but I still looked at you as competition.
Yeah.
And just prideful Glenn at that time was just like, it's not as bad as it used to be, right? And then we had a common denominator come in, right?
Yeah.
and that kind of like, okay, yep, I don't like that guy. He doesn't like that guy. Let's make it our mission to not let that guy get it, right? And so we kind of formed, and then Bill was in the mix, and we just kind of formed a little bit more. And so things started to change a little bit. And I remember when you were thinking about making the move, and I remember, I was like, man, I don't have, like, we don't know each other that well, but I am going to try to drop some game on him and tell him, like, don't do it.
Into the finance world.
Yeah, and I remember having multiple conversations like, Greg, don't do it.
I think it was probably definitely hard for you because you're like, well, this would definitely give me a few more cardio if he's off the floor and he's out of my way. But also, like, he doesn't know.
No.
He doesn't know what's going to happen to him.
He doesn't know. And what's funny about that, I dominated that first 6 months. I put up 175 cars. I came back. Purposely, I said, hey, I want to come back for the sale. And I just want to run it. And he was like, all right, cool. So I came back in the middle of May, and first week, 16, whatever. Second year, I did over 200 some cars. It was number one.
Yep.
At that time, between a year and a half, they had probably moved up 3 to 5 people in the finance.
Easily. I got skipped over every time too.
And I was very pissed off about it. Like, just like, what? That's not what we agreed on, and things like that. And so they would say, oh yeah, it's not this, it's this. It's not this, it's this. You don't do this enough. You don't do this enough. You don't leadership. All these things. And I used to ask God, like, why? Why can I not get there? But now looking back at it, it wasn't meant for me to go back there. It
wasn't meant for you.
It wasn't meant for me to be a manager at that particular place. And so as you moved up, that left me more leverage. So I'm going to just keep it 100 with you. I was like, trying to take all your clients, like, he's in finance, he doesn't do this anymore. Yeah. Let me go ahead and help you. And so we moved up, and then we went to a Christmas party. I want to say 2021. Yeah, 2021.
I think that's when the wives got together.
That's when the wives, yeah. And at this time, 2021, yeah, because I was getting married.
Yeah. So that's when we started connecting on a different level, for sure. I think that, had they not, developed that friendship, I don't know if we would have been friends, to be honest.
To be honest,
That definitely drove it together. But I'll say this. I think that, a lot of times people are just misunderstood.
Facts.
And I think that a lot of people, without knowing you or knowing your heart or knowing, your intentions,
right,
they can just misunderstand.
Exactly.
And I think, I've had to deal with that, and, certain things that, people prejudge about me.
Right.
And I think that, until you actually spend time and know somebody's heart, the Bible talks about going back to that and going back to having that personal relationship with God. I think that a lot of times that, you can hear of God. We talked about this, your mom, you went to church and you knew like God existed. Like I can know who you are, but unless I spend time with you,
exactly,
we're not building a relationship.
Right.
And the same applies with our spiritual walk with God.
Absolutely.
If we're not actually spending time with God, how are we ever going to be building a relationship?
Right. Especially a strong foundation. It's going to be based off of sand.
Yeah.
And that sinks quickly.
100%. So we both come from the car industry, come from very successful careers in the car business, ran the tables.
Yeah.
I was one of the top guys in the finance world.
And was close to being like the guy, to be a manager. But God had other plans.
And I think that the more that you tap into understanding that it's not about you,
right,
and the selflessness that you need to possess.
Yeah.
One of the biggest reasons that I think I was drawn to this opportunity in insurance was the ability to help other people change their perspective on life, their work, what they understand about work.
Right.
And, I think we're designed as humans. I mean, God talks about it. He put Adam to work right away.
Right.
Like we're supposed to work. Like it's not supposed to just be like, hey, vacations and party all the time. Like that, that's not real. But I think that once you figure out what you are truly passionate about, when you can tap into that, that's where the true magic happens between what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to impact others.
Yeah.
Going back to chasing titles, like that wasn't it.
No. And I, no matter how much I resisted or no matter how much I was trying to plead and try to hear, I was so lost in my mind and like so convinced in my mind. So no matter what people said, he could have been talking to me, which I know for a fact he probably was. He was tugging on me, and it wasn't in a boisterous, monstrous way. It was in a whisper or imprint in my heart, and I would quickly just say, no, that's not it. That's not, nope, but I want to do this.
Yeah.
But I want to be this. I want this. I want that. And so when it seemed like things were going well, that's when other curveballs started happening.
Yeah.
At that time, we had a great relationship. Our wives basically was like, I don't know about Chelsea, but Jessica was like, hey.
Figure it out.
Yeah, pretty much. She was like, hey, I like Chelsea, and like I want to be friends, and I'm not going to stop being friends with her, so y'all need to figure this out.
Yeah.
And so that helped me to mature, and then we would have dinner at your house or vice versa, and families come together, and then, I mean, a cool friendship just came about of that.
100%.
So
I know it was
cool.
When I jumped into this, I went to the convention that they had at that time down in Miami. This is 2 years ago.
Right.
And I remember writing on a piece of paper, they're like, who do you want as like your starting five? And I remember like, you were the first person on my list. I was like, stop getting him. It's just a matter of time. But when I came back, like you were like, dude, come on. Like, let's be honest. Like you pay all the bills. Like this is kind of crazy. And it was a little bit, but I think that God also works in different ways, in different timing. Like our timing isn't always his timing.
Right.
And when you really tap into that, that's a whole nother. We could
do another podcast
on that. His timing isn't always your timing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not.
It's definitely not.
And so when you understand that, like, hey, if you're connected and you're in it, it's going to happen when it needs to happen. And that's with all facets of
100%.
Business, life, relationships. You can't force anything, and you need to just be in and have the, open heart to whatever God wants.
Yes.
So I think that you making the decision to, go in all in for yourself has allowed you to be there for others.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the first intention is, because you don't really know what to expect, that you are doing it for you. Right. But the reality is, it turns in very quickly that this business isn't about us. Right. It's about others, and it's about the impact that you can have on others and then in others people's lives with the product that we have to offer and the people that we get to bring into the business. Yeah. So I think those two things coming together makes this thing just the most incredible thing that we have. I always give a couple, three, little trivia type questions. All right. So we're going to shift gears completely. Glenn.
Hope I get it right.
If we had to go on your Netflix account right now, what would be the most recently watched thing on your Netflix account?
That's the easy one. It would probably be Sing, because my youngest daughter Moon loves Sing.
Okay.
She loves it. So
all of them, like the different.
Yeah, she Sing 1. It went from Moana 1 to we took it to the movies to see Moana 2, and now it's Sing 1. And then it's Sing 2. Okay. And then it's Just Dance on YouTube. So if you see that, you'll see Just Dance a lot, or you will see me watching a lot of inspirational podcasts.
I love it. All right, got another question. This is going to be, we're going to put 60 seconds. I got my clock going here. Okay. Put 60 seconds. I'll tell you when to go, and I'll tell you when to stop. And we're going to have this up on the screen as like a ticker. Okay. Let's see how many states and capitals you know. And I'm going to give you 5 seconds to get us started. And we're going to name them off. Ready? Go.
Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin, Kansas.
The capitals.
Indianapolis, Springfield, Illinois, Indianapolis, Indiana. You have, I believe it's Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You have Topeka, Kansas. You also have...
You got 30 seconds. Come on.
Okay. You have Sacramento, California. Uh-huh. You have Austin. Is it Austin? No. It's nope. I'm gonna skip that. You have. Man, I'm really terrible at this.
15 seconds on the clock.
Frankfurt, Kentucky. No, Lexington, Kentucky. Kentucky. Yeah. Yes. Yep.
The people will tell us if we got this right or not.
They definitely will tell me that I chopped it out for sure. They definitely tell me I messed up. I did a terrible job. Can I get a redo?
How many points do you think you got there? I think maybe 7.
I was
8.
Well, if it's 1 point per state, or is it 2?
1 point per state and capital.
So maybe 5 or 6.
All right.
I would say maybe
that was
5
a rough
or 6.
one.
So you guys got to tell. Yeah, it was terrible.
Chime in if you know some capitals. If you want to get on this game, we got you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. The last question. What's one of your favorite either books or motivational quotes? Outside of the Bible. Obviously, we know the Bible's going to be the number one.
Bible's awesome.
Outside of the Bible, what's one of your favorite books or motivational quotes?
It's one that I heard a gentleman say, and we have it on our wall. This too shall pass. The reason why it resonated with me so well is because my circumstances do not dictate my outcome all the time. And what I mean by that is, depending on how I'm feeling that day, or depending on the highs and lows of the business or in life, it's going to pass away. It's going to be okay. Not letting my emotions get the best of me and cloud my judgment. It's going to be okay. When I'm in my rough times and I'm in my desperate times that I may feel, from being stretched and wearing multiple hats of an entrepreneur, a dad, a husband, a Christ follower, a brother, a son. It can be stressful at times. It can stretch me a lot, and I just have to remember to myself that this is going to pass and just take it one step at a time. And as long as I know that Christ is with me through all things, I'm okay.
This too shall pass.
Yeah, I firmly believe
Good, it's going to pass.
Yeah.
Bad, it's going to pass.
Yeah.
So don't get too high.
Don't get too low. Yeah, 100%. Stay even. This too
shall pass.
Yes.
I love it, bro.
Facts.
Dude, this has been an amazing podcast.
Facts.
Guys, we appreciate you for hanging tight with us. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We'll see you guys next time. God bless.
Blessing. Peace.